there is a softness to the Everglades that arrives without warning. You step out of the car at the Anhinga Trail parking area, and the first sound is birdsong. A great blue heron stands motionless in the shallow water 20 feet from the wooden boardwalk railing, close enough that you can see the yellow ring of its eye. The water below it is olive green and still. The sawgrass bends in air that barely moves. The light in the late afternoon turns the cypress trees amber. You lower your shoulders without noticing you do it. The whole landscape feels, against every instinct you should trust, gentle. That gentleness is the first thing the Everglades teaches you. It is also the most reliable thing that can get you into trouble here. The Everglades is not a swamp. It is a river. A slow 50-mile wide sheet of warm, dark water moving south through 1.5 million acres of subtropical wetland toward Florida Bay. That river has been building for approximately 10,000 years, and in that time it has assembled one of the densest concentrations of apex predators anywhere on the North American continent. This list does not rank by raw annual fatality numbers. It ranks by the distance that trained Everglades rangers, wildlife biologists, and backcountry airboat captains actually maintain in the field. Some animals here kill more people per year than others. But some animals make the people who know them best hold different margins, make different decisions, move differently through the landscape. That is the measurement that matters on this list. If you like content that rewards knowing what is actually out there, subscribe. This channel covers North American wildlife the way it deserves to be covered. And if you have walked these trails or paddled these waterways, drop where you were watching from in the comments. Number 15. Feral hog. A substantial share of emergency evacuations in the Everglades backcountry are not caused by alligators or by snakes. They are caused by wild pigs. Feral hogs descended from domestic animals brought to Florida in the 1500s by Spanish explorers under Hernando de Soto. And they now occupy every county in the state. In the Everglades, they concentrate along the damp edges of hardwood hammocks and sawgrass prairies, moving in groups of 12 to 20 animals through heavy brush at night. A large boar in this region can weigh 250 pounds and sustain a charge of 30 miles per hour through palmetto thicket that would stop a person cold. Their curved tusks slash upward and outward, not forward, producing tearing injuries to the lower legs and femoral region. Femoral artery damage from feral hog encounters has been documented across Florida, Georgia, and Texas, including fatal cases. The core problem is categorical. The word pig does not live in most people's threat assessment file. That word placement, that soft and familiar animal category, is exactly what makes the encounter more likely to end badly. Number 15 is the one that reaches you while your brain still believes it is somewhere safe. Number 14. Florida cottonmouth. The Florida cottonmouth is the only semi-aquatic venomous snake in North America. It inhabits Everglades waterways, cypress strands, and sloughs throughout the ecosystem, and unlike most pit vipers, it frequently holds its ground when approached. It coils, opens its mouth wide to reveal the white interior that gave the species its common name, and it waits. It does not always retreat. It has also been documented striking while fully submerged, which is something no casual visitor briefing in the Everglades adequately addresses, because the image of a snake resting on the bottom of a freshwater stream does not fit the standard mental model of a venomous snake encounter. Research teams working in Everglades wetland systems have found that even trained observers missed cottonmouths at close range the majority of the time during real field conditions. The reason is coloration. A banded brown-black pattern against tannic Everglades leaf litter and root debris does not simply blend in. It disappears. Number 14 is the animal that is most likely already inside its own strike range before the person looking at it has correctly identified the category of thing they are looking at. Number 13. Florida black bear. Florida black bears were nearly gone by 1970. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission now estimates approximately 4,200 individuals statewide. A substantial conservation recovery. A significant population ranges through Big Cypress National Preserve, which borders the Everglades to the north, and adult males in this region average 350 pounds, with a documented capacity to cover 40 miles in a single night. Unlike brown bears, whose charge patterns field researchers have mapped extensively over decades, black bears are opportunistic and variable in their responses. A female with cubs encountered at close range on a narrow trail does not bluff. In 2014, a woman walking dogs near a trailhead on the Everglades' northern fringe in Seminole County was attacked by a bear that came from dense vegetation, with no cubs visible nearby. Unprovoked black bear attacks in Florida are rare but documented, and Florida has recorded more of them over the past 20 years than any other state east of the Mississippi River. The trail signage at most Everglades access points has not fully caught up to that data. Number 13 is the one that conservation successfully returned to the landscape before the public messaging updated its expectations. Number 12. Red imported fire ant. Solenopsis invicta arrived in the United States through the port of Mobile, Alabama, in the 1930s, most likely inside ship ballast soil from South America. Fire ant colonies now occupy the majority of upland and trail edge habitat within the Everglades system, and their mounds blend into surrounding soil closely enough that visitors place a foot directly into a colony before any visual cue presents itself. After significant rainfall, entire colonies float to the surface as organized living rafts of linked bodies, seeking elevated ground. That elevated ground is often a boot, a fallen log, or the forearm of someone resting against a tree. The ants do not respond individually. They accumulate on the skin in number, and a chemical alarm signal triggers coordinated simultaneous stinging. The burning arrives all at once. Pustules develop over the following 12 to 24 hours. Anaphylaxis from fire ant stings is among the most common triggers for life-threatening allergic reactions in the American South, and Florida emergency medicine data consistently shows more fire ant-related hospital admissions than cases involving venomous snake bites. The margin between those two categories is not close. Number 12 is the one that removed itself from the threat category entirely by being familiar enough to ignore. Number 11. The alligator snapping turtle appears in the fossil record more than 23 million years ago. A large adult specimen exceeds 220 pounds. Its bite force is among the highest documented in any freshwater animal in North America, sufficient to sever a human finger in a single motion without effort, and this has occurred in documented field and captive incidents. They inhabit the deep freshwater sloughs and slow river channels of the Everglades. Buried in silt on the bottom in turbid water, where they are genuinely invisible, they surface briefly to breathe and descend again. When feeding, they rest motionless with the mouth open and a pink worm-shaped lingual appendage extended and moving in the current like a small aquatic invertebrate. Fish approach of their own accord. Biologists who work with large freshwater species across multiple continents report that the alligator snapper produces stronger involuntary physiological alarm responses in experienced handlers than most animals of comparable size. Not because it moves with speed, but because in the water, at the bottom, it cannot be located until it has already decided to move. Guidebooks describe it as a curiosity. Number 11 is the animal that the natural world finished building more than 20 million years before the first human footprint appeared on this continent, and has found no reason to revise anything since. Number 10. Eastern diamondback rattlesnake. The eastern diamondback is the heaviest venomous snake in North America. An adult male in the Everglades region can reach 8 feet in length and weigh over 10 pounds. Its hemotoxic venom destroys blood cells and soft tissue at the strike site, and without antivenin, serious bites can require surgical intervention, extended hospitalization, and may result in permanent damage to the affected limb. Rangers at Everglades National Park have noted that most visitors pass within 15 feet of a diamondback at some point during a standard trail walk and return to the parking area without having identified the snake. The rattle is not always deployed. Researchers have documented quiet strikes in cooler ambient temperatures, when the animal is sluggish and less alarmed, producing a bite with no preceding audible signal. The eastern diamondback has declined severely across most of the southeast over the past 50 years, creating an impression of rarity that does not apply inside the protected corridor of Everglades National Park, where their density remains substantially higher than anywhere else in their remaining range. Number 10 is the one that survived every ecological disruption of the past century by becoming exceptionally skilled at not appearing in your field of view. Number 9. Dusky pygmy rattlesnake. At an average adult length of 18 to 24 inches, the dusky pygmy rattlesnake is the smallest rattlesnake in Florida. It is also responsible for more reported venomous snake bites in the state than any other species. They occupy every habitat type in the Everglades system, from wet prairie edges to sawgrass canal margins, and their rattle produces a sound much closer to a large insect than to the warning signal the word rattlesnake implies. Hikers pass them while looking upward at osprey and roseate spoonbills. Researchers kneel within inches of them while pulling soil cores. A field study by University of Florida herpetologists found that trained researchers conducting return surveys of individually marked animals missed approximately 40% of known individuals on subsequent passes, even with approximate location data in hand. That miss rate belongs to experienced professionals who were actively searching. Their bite delivers hemotoxic venom capable of causing substantial tissue damage, particularly to the hand and foot, which are the most common strike locations. Number 9 is the one that experienced rangers have found increasingly difficult to warn visitors about, because accurately describing a venomous snake that looks like a fragment of dead leaf and sounds like a cricket does not produce the behavioral change the warning is intended to generate. If you have stayed this far, subscribe. The next 6 entries are the ones that experienced Everglades field staff describe differently in private than they do in public visitor briefings, not because they are rarer, but because they represent threats where standard safety messaging falls measurably short of the actual situation. Number 8. Bull shark. Bull sharks are among the few shark species capable of sustained survival in fresh water through osmoregulation, adjusting the salt concentration in their blood to match the environment around them. They have been documented more than 100 miles from the ocean in inland freshwater river systems on multiple continents. In the Everglades, they have been tagged and tracked in the Shark River, a waterway that cuts through the interior of Everglades National Park. Kayakers and canoeists paddling backcountry routes in this system are sharing water with bull sharks in channels that range between 3 and 5 feet deep. The shark does not need depth. It needs water. Marine biologists consistently rank bull sharks above great white sharks as the species most responsible for human fatalities in shallow coastal and riverine environments, because they bite multiple times in a single encounter and because they operate in the same turbid shallow zones where humans wade, paddle, and swim. Number 8 is the one that removed the ocean from the list of prerequisites. Number 7. Florida panther. There are approximately 130 Florida panthers alive in the wild, according to the most recent Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission population assessments. They range across roughly 4,000 square miles of South Florida, with Everglades National Park and Big Cypress National Preserve forming the core of their habitat. A single adult male's home range can exceed 200 square miles. They are nocturnal. They cross paved roads, drainage canals, and occupied campsite perimeters in darkness without producing a sound detectable by an adjacent sleeping person. Wildlife research has documented panther tracks at campsite areas throughout the Everglades backcountry trail system, including active sites used by visitors on consecutive nights. The endangered species designation generates powerful visitor interest. People drive into Big Cypress specifically hoping to see one, and that hope does something specific to risk perception. An animal you want to see becomes categorically different from an animal you are trying to monitor, even when that animal is a large ambush predator with a home range wider than some counties and a documented habit of moving through occupied campsites after dark. Number 7 is the one that conservation has successfully returned to this landscape, and that the visitor experience has not yet updated its situational awareness to account for. Number 6. Africanized honeybees. Africanized honeybees reached Florida in the early 1990s having spread northward from Brazil through Central America and into the southern United States across roughly 4 decades of range expansion. They now occupy the entire southern half of the state, including the Everglades, and they are visually indistinguishable from European honeybees to any observer without laboratory equipment. The only reliable difference is behavioral, and behavioral differences are not observable until a colony has been disturbed. When that occurs, the defensive response from an Africanized colony is approximately 10 times larger than a European colony would produce. They pursue the perceived threat over significantly greater distances, with documented pursuits extending beyond a quarter mile. Victims of recorded mass attack incidents have received over 2,000 individual stings. People with no prior history of bee venom sensitivity have died in these incidents. Everglades airboat operators and backcountry trail maintenance crews specifically trained for accidental colony disturbance. And several experienced crew leads who spend multiple days per week in confirmed alligator and python territory have stated that bees represent their primary field safety concern in the ecosystem. Number 6 is the one whose danger is entirely invisible until the colony's decision to respond is already underway. Number 5. Burmese python. The Burmese python arrived in the Everglades through the exotic pet trade during the 1980s and 90s. A 2012 population estimate placed the South Florida total at over 100,000 individuals. Research conducted by the United States Geological Survey between 2019 and 2022 suggested the actual number may be considerably higher, with pythons now distributed across the full 1.5 million acres of the greater Everglades ecosystem. They kill by constriction, not venom. Their documented prey list in Florida includes white-tailed deer, American alligators, great blue herons, and bobcats. Between 2000 and 2006, marsh rabbit populations in Everglades National Park declined by 99%. Opossum populations fell by 98%. Raccoon populations fell by 87%. Researchers from the Smithsonian Institution and the South Florida Natural Resources Center published these findings in 2012, nearly a decade after the collapse had already occurred. Throughout that entire period, the python itself remained almost entirely undetected by field surveys. Their patterned brown and khaki coloring against the damp Everglades floor is not camouflage in any active sense. It is structural invisibility. Number 5 is the one that quietly restructured the ecology of a 1.5 million acre ecosystem before the scientific community reached consensus that the scale of the problem was real. Number 4. American crocodile. Most visitors to the Everglades know it for its alligators. Fewer know that the American crocodile, Crocodylus acutus, shares this ecosystem, and that the two animals are not equivalent in temperament or in the history of their interactions with humans. The Florida crocodile population was estimated at fewer than 300 individuals in 1975. It has since recovered to approximately 2,000 animals, concentrated in Florida Bay, Biscayne Bay, and the mangrove estuaries of the southern Everglades coastline. The Everglades is the only place on Earth where alligators and crocodiles share a watershed. In comparable ecosystems elsewhere in the world, crocodilian species closely related to the American crocodile are documented as significantly more aggressive toward humans in unprovoked conditions than American alligators are. The American crocodile is considered less dangerous than its Nile and saltwater relatives, but understanding what that comparison actually means requires knowing what Nile and saltwater crocodiles represent as a behavioral baseline. American crocodiles have been documented approaching boats and swimmers in Florida Bay on multiple occasions. They can exceed 14 feet in length. Their strike velocity exceeds the human visual tracking threshold at close distances. Number 4 is the one that shares water with the animal every visitor is already cautious about and receives a fraction of that caution itself. Number 3. Eastern coral snake. The eastern coral snake carries the most potent venom of any snake native to North America. It is neurotoxic, disrupting the transmission of nerve signals to the respiratory muscles, and an untreated significant envenomation can produce respiratory failure within 24 hours. Coral snakes inhabit the dry pine flatwoods, sandy scrub areas, and hammock edges that border the wet Everglades interior. They are far more common than their infrequent sightings suggest. They are secretive burrowing animals that spend the majority of their lives beneath the surface, under leaf litter and rotting wood, and their presence in an area is rarely registered by observers passing through. Their biting mechanism requires sustained chewing contact rather than a single decisive strike, and this has produced an unearned popular reputation for being relatively low risk. The deeper problem is temporal. The delay between a coral snakebite and visible symptoms can extend from 4 to 6 hours or longer. A person bitten at a backcountry campsite in the morning may feel entirely normal through the early afternoon and experience complete respiratory collapse before emergency evacuation can reach them from the nearest road access point. The identification rhyme taught in American schools fails for color variants present in Florida and requires correctly reading band color sequence on a small moving snake in dense, low-light vegetation. Number 3 is the one that gives you time and uses every hour of it against you. Number 2. American alligator. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission has documented over 450 unprovoked alligator bites on humans in Florida between 1988 and 2023. 26 were fatal. No other reptile in North America has an injury record that approaches either of those figures. There are an estimated 1.3 million alligators in Florida, and every significant freshwater body in the state holds at least one. A 10-foot alligator can project its head approximately 5 feet forward in a motion faster than a trained human observer can register that the motion has begun. The large majority of attacks investigated by Florida wildlife researchers involve animals that had been fed by visitors or that had lost their wariness of humans through repeated proximity to people along boardwalk railings, fishing piers, and canal edges. Everglades National Park receives over 1 million visitors each year. Alligators bask on trail margins, float in roadside drainage canals, and occupy the water directly adjacent to every visitor facility in the park. The familiarity that has built up over decades has produced a specific and measurable problem. The animal has not changed its behavior. The observer has changed theirs. Number 2 is the one that everyone knows, that most people on this trail underestimate, and that has the documented injury record to confirm both of those things at the same time. And that brings us to number 1. The largest animal on this list did not reach this position. The most venomous did not reach it either. The animal ranked here is small enough to land on the back of your hand without your registering the additional weight. It carries no visible warning coloration. It produces no audible threat signal and leaves no surface disturbance in water or vegetation that indicates its approach. It has been filed by virtually every human who has entered this ecosystem under the category of annoyance rather than the category of danger. And that filing error is, by the measurement that matters most, one of the more consequential mistakes made regularly in this landscape. Number 1. Mosquito. The Everglades is one of the most productive mosquito breeding habitats on Earth. 43 mosquito species are documented within the ecosystem. During peak summer breeding seasons, a single acre of Everglades sawgrass marsh can produce tens of thousands of larvae per week, and field researchers working without adequate protection have documented losing measurable blood volume within 30 minutes of standing still in open marsh. 2 species carry the medical significance that determines this position. Culex nigra palpus is the primary vector for eastern equine encephalitis in Florida. EE causes neurological damage in the humans who develop full encephalitis, and its case fatality rate in those patients approaches 30%. No approved antiviral treatment exists. In 2019, an outbreak across the eastern United States produced 36 confirmed human cases and 15 deaths, with Florida among the most active transmission states in the country. West Nile virus, dengue fever, and historically malaria, which remained endemic in South Florida, through the mid-20th century, all carry active transmission potential in this ecosystem. Researchers at the Florida Medical Entomology Laboratory have characterized the southern Everglades mosquito load as among the most intense found in any temperate ecosystem in the Western Hemisphere. Number 1 is the smallest animal on this list. It is the one you swat without looking, the one you stopped thinking about before you finished reading its name, and by cumulative documented mortality across the greater Everglades region, it has killed more people than every other entry on this list combined. That is not rhetorical emphasis. It is what the accounting produces when you apply the same standard to every species equally. Go back to the boardwalk. Late afternoon. The great blue heron still motionless in the olive green shallows, the amber light moving across the cypress domes to the west, the dark water sliding almost imperceptibly south toward the bay. Everything appears unhurried and, if you permit it, safe. The Everglades does not announce what it holds. The alligator on the bank is visible, and most visitors have already begun to pass it without slowing their stride. The python resting in the sawgrass along the trail edge is not visible at all. And the mosquito working its way across the back of your hand in the warm late light is so ordinary that you have already brushed it away before this sentence can reach you. What this list is about is the distance between what the Everglades appears to be and what the Everglades actually is. That distance is consistent. It has been consistent for 10,000 years. The animals that live inside that gap have had 10,000 years to become very good at what they do, and that gap does not narrow with familiarity. It narrows with attention. If something on this list changed how you think about moving through this country, I would like to hear it. Drop a comment below. And tell me where you were